The Utah Jazz won a big one. We got trade rumors and scenarios. And does Golden State need to hit the reset button? All that and more in today's episode of the Full Court Press Podcast. JD, run that intro, man. Hi, everyone. We're your hosts, Doc D and JD. It's December 3rd, and you are listening or watching to the Full Court Press Podcast. JD, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. It's been an exciting week and couple weeks of basketball, so I'm excited to get into it. How are you doing, Doc?
I'm doing fantastic. Something I really want to talk about, especially because we're Utah Jazz fans, is the incredible win we witnessed last night, which to me really represented the culture of the Utah Jazz, which to me, per Will Hardy, is toughness, passion, and sacrifice. Holy crap, that was fun. You watched that game. I know you did.
Oh yeah. I think my favorite aspect about this game is just the fact of we don't have Markkanen in there. You don't have Jordan Clarkson in there. But, it goes down to the wire. It gets intense. And, there's a lot of these guys who, may not have otherwise had some of these roles, but they're getting thrown into them. They're working hard and they're showing some grit. And I really appreciated that aspect.
I completely agree, man. Collin Sexton really stood out to me. He was a +4, 25 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. And look, this was the Collin Sexton that the Utah Jazz were trading for, man. He was awesome. He showed poise. He had composure. He played 30 minutes of just incredible basketball. He had amazing shot selection. If this is the Collin Sexton that the Utah Jazz are going to get moving forward, in my opinion, they really have their six-man candidate for a championship caliber team. What do you think?
I think that a lot of our guards for the Utah Jazz, you've got Ochai Agbaji, you've got Jordan Clarkson, you've got Keontae George, and you've got Sexton, Talen Horton-Tucker. There's a plethora with the Utah Jazz. But they need a little bit more development, maybe some more than others. But I think, in my opinion, I have been seeing some progress made with Sexton. And I think a lot of people forget, and maybe even Utah Jazz fans forget this too. But before that trade, the Donovan Mitchell trade where we acquired Sexton was one of the highest usage rate to assists in the NBA. In fact, the lowest. He had the highest usage rate with the lowest amount of assists.
Right.
And so I think that can generally mean that maybe people that play with him could get frustrated. He did average, 20 to 24 in some of those early seasons, but it kind of came at a detriment too. He was never passing the ball. And I think you got to give kudos to Will Hardy in trying to develop him into more of, that point guard oriented role. Although I don't know if that's going to be his future spot. We were just talking about how he can be a six man or maybe a six man of the future for the Jazz. But, something I really like about it is that he is becoming more of a facilitator. You can tell some of his passes. In fact, in this game against the Trailblazers this past Sunday, I really think he showed a lot of grit, a lot of poise, like he always does. But I think especially he looked like he was a little bit of a floor general. He had some great passes. And I don't think the box score shows everything, but, he was having great finds. And quite frankly, I think the guard play as well, including Talen Horton-Tucker, I thought they did pretty well off the bench.
Yeah, that's masterfully said, my brother. You know what the box score doesn't cover, man, is just clutch buckets. And they really should they'll never make a stat for that, obviously. But Collin Sexton really helped the Jazz, and he propelled them to what I thought was an incredible victory. He showed a sense of maturity that I don't know if we have seen from him And like I love seeing that because like it shows that he is still malleable. You can still kind of like help him develop and grow. And like honestly, kudos to Will Hardy, man. Like he's taking players and he's kind of taking them out of their element and he's developing them into something greater. And I absolutely love that right now. um some other players of interest, at least in my opinion, I gotta talk about John Collins, man. A +4, 17-9. Um, Look, his best quality, in my opinion, outside of his athleticism, is just he is a rebounding machine. And what he's shown us here in Utah is that John the Baptist is consistent, man. And it's interesting because I remember talking to you offline before this season started, really before like the John Collins trade too. And like we had noticed there was a massive downward slide really in his offensive production, his production overall. And you know, like he's shooting 40% from 3 for the first time since 2019-2020. And you and I have talked offline about how we believe the system in Atlanta really did not cater to John Collins. Kind of after that 21-10 year, he got the massive contract extension. He was like their second option. And then it kind of spiraled down from there. But to see him jump literally, what is this, like 3 years going on 4 years, back to 40%. Like I love that. He's been consistent for us here in Utah. And dude, the pickup just for Rudy Gay, he is such a solid power forward. I'm very glad we have Collins. What's your take on him right now, man?
You know, I would love to really dive deep into John Collins, especially, John has recently come over from the Atlanta Hawks, as you know,
Yep.
and as you were mentioning, but I would like to really dive deep and do a further evaluation upon that trade and let us know in the comments below what you guys think about that. But, overall, I think since he's come over to the Utah Jazz, we have seen a lot of consistency from him. We've seen, he's shooting at a high clip from the 3-point. I think he might be the highest 3-point percentage on the team, sitting around 40 to 42%. And he's not shooting bad field goal percentage either, like he's shooting about 46 if I recall. And I think that he's been very good for us, and he's going to still be continuing in Hardy's system, developing, getting synergy with the team. So I can only assume that he's either going to basically be where he's at or get better. And I think where he's at right now, he's been a solid piece for us. And as you said before, with the trade just of Rudy Gay and a second-round pick, seems pretty good. I mean, a lot of times second-round picks don't pan out, and Rudy Gay was just like
very stagnant.
Rudy Gay,
very stagnant.
The thing I want to pose something here, and I think a lot of people that love John Collins might realize this as well. Is there's a little bit of, I don't really know how to put it with him. Because I think that you look at his stat sheet, his field goal percentage, but sometimes I see him just let people go by him on defense. I mean, he got something like 2 to 3 blocks last game, so he can really make an impact. But at other times, I don't know. Like Collins, he seems like great at sometimes, but also it doesn't seem like he's the most impactful player out there. Like I don't really think he can be a number 2 option for a team.
No, I totally
agree give him
with
third or fourth. I don't know. What do you think?
No, he totally can't be a number 2 option on a team. I mean, he was a number 2 option on a team with the Hawks, and that wound up to him getting traded. I totally agree with you. He's not a number 2 option. But I think he's a solid 4.
I'll argue that when he was number 2 option, didn't they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals in Atlanta?
They did. They
he was a 20-10 guy.
Yes, and that was his best season to date. But ever since then, there was the decline, and I mean, it led to him eventually getting traded. No, I agree with you. He can't be a number 2 option. But in terms of like what he does, I think he's fantastic. Like he'll get you the rebound, and that's honestly what we need him to do. His athleticism is bonkers. and he seems to be fitting in really well with our team, and I love that. Another shout out to KG3, our rookie. It's funny. Like my wife and I, we talk about how Keontae George is our son. That's how much we love him. We say, "Oh, our boy's playing." We love this kid. 21, 6-6, +1. 7 out of 17 from the field, 1 from 8 from 3. Personally, like he's not having a great shooting start really to his career, but honestly, like for a guy that set the Baylor record for most threes made as a freshman, I say just let the kid shoot. He's going to figure it out. He has a silky shot. He's a smart player. He's an incredible scorer, and he's working really well within this system. I love watching him play. Honestly, one of my favorite Keontae George moments was seeing him ask for the coach's challenge a few games ago. Like he's starting to settle in to his identity and who he's going to be for the Utah Jazz. I really think that he's going to be a great leader for this team one day when he continues to develop. Kessler didn't really have the best game, -4. He had 12 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks. I can't wait to see him return to the starting lineup. Ochai Agbaji was a +8, 6 points. This is crazy about the whole plus minus, JD. Ochai Agbaji is a +8, and he only had 6 points, 3 or 4 shooting, but he's also like an incredible defender at 6'5", super athletic. I just love what our team did last night. So this is the question I'm going to pose to you, man, because this is what I think really is what's important to us and Jazz fans. What are the expectations for this team going into next year, really, and this year? Like, we're going to finish out this year and go into next year. Like, what should we as fans expect?
Yeah, that's a good point. Good question to ask. And I even want to further that. Like, I expect some trades to happen. I expect something at the trade deadline. I expect something to happen in the offseason. I think there's still going to be some switch ups. But I think, if we are looking at teams that have won it, I want to take a look at somebody like Denver Nuggets. They got an MVP caliber player in Jokic.
My God,
okay, there's their cornerstone.
Mm-hmm.
They found Jamal Murray in the draft. 2 guys they found in the draft. They found Porter Jr. in the draft. And then they built around those guys. I think those 3, maybe another, were those pivotal pieces, but they weren't afraid to move off of those guys, some other guys, and just start adding, tweaking to make the team what they are today. And do we have the team, the roster right now, where we can say, okay, we want to keep these guys. These guys are the future of the Jazz, but it might be a while. I took a look at the upcoming games for the season. Let's just look at it right now while we have it. Utah Jazz, their upcoming games. We're against the Mavericks. The Mavericks are good. At the Mavericks, probably a loss. The Clippers at the Jazz.
There you go. We lost you for a second.
Oh, can you hear me?
No, we got you now. We lost you for a minute, though.
Okay. Well,
you're good, though.
Basically, what I was saying is that we don't necessarily know about the future of the Jazz, where that might be in terms of the roster. But what I do know is I don't think they're going to be very good right now. And I just wanted to take a look at some of the upcoming games. They're going against the Mavericks on Wednesday. That is likely to be a loss. I think the Mavericks are good. Clippers at the Jazz. I feel like the Clippers kind of have our number. Even with the addition of Harden, and they haven't totally found success there, I think they're going to win. Jazz at the Thunder. The Thunder have been finding huge success. Probably another loss. Knicks at the Jazz. There's potential there, but the Knicks are pretty good. Jazz at the Trailblazers. We seem to be pretty close with them, but it's at the Trailblazers. There's a chance we lose there. Jazz at the Kings. The Kings will probably beat us. So, just taking a look at these upcoming 5 to 6 games, there's probably a lot of losses coming in. And we
Right.
got to think, okay, are we developing for the future? Do we have corner pieces for the future? Or, like what's the plan here? Should we
Hmm.
be bringing up Taylor Hendricks more often? Should we be bringing up Bryce Sensabaugh, who's been tearing it up in the G League? Or should we
Tearing it up.
be. What was that?
Oh, I said tearing it up. He is a
He really
demon,
is.
dude. He's an absolute demon.
So let me pose this question to you, Doc.
Let's talk about it.
What do you think is going to happen this year? Do you think that we're not going to finish well? Are we looking to get another draft pick, or are we looking to try and trade, do a little bit of both to get somebody built around Lowry, or what's going on?
Well, I don't think there's a player out there that you can trade for that is going to change the trajectory of the Utah Jazz right now. I think that player was Damian Lillard. And we didn't try to get him. He was the only player that was technically available that could have sent us into legitimate contention. But at the same at the same time, on the same token, Lauri Markkanen is not Giannis Antetokounmpo, so the fit still there could have been questionable. I think the best plan right now is to let all these players develop, and that includes Lauri Markkanen. I'm this guy's biggest fan, dude. You know this. I love the finisher. I love the marksman. Lowry is a solid number 2 option guarantee with the potential to develop into a number 1 option. He's 26 years old. I think the reason we're not seeing the leap we thought he was going to have is because he decided to go and serve his country, and he went into basic training. As a vet myself, I respect that. I salute you, Lowry. Thank you for your service, especially to your country. But he's still playing himself back into basketball. I mean, you have to understand something. As a vet, I'm going to tell you this right now. We don't really touch basketballs during basic training. We're playing with guns, not playing with them, but we're training with guns, and we're training with rucksacks, and we're learning to be soldiers. This guy spent his entire off season doing that, and that was before. I think that was before FIBA, right? Or then he went into FIBA, played there, and he's probably exhausted. This is the first time that he really has turned that corner as a player. Last year he put up incredible numbers off of MVP statistics, and he put the league on notice. And the thing about the NBA that too, JD, is like they learn, man. You fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Scouting reports are out on Lauri Markkanen, man. They're going to double team him. They're going to make his life hard. And the fact that he's still putting up very consistent numbers on lower stats shows you that he's the kind of player we really should build around. Like I said, man, I fully believe this dude is he's a guaranteed number 2 option, Pat, or he has he has the potential to turn into a number 1 option. He's just 26 years old, man. 7 feet, 245. Like, he's the most efficient 3-point shooter, big man in the NBA. Like, I'll plant my flag on that, dude. Like, I would keep this kid no matter what. Let him develop. Let these young kids develop, okay? Let Keontae George continue to come along. Look, Ochai Agbaji, I love this kid. He's a great defender. He's a great perimeter defender. If he can just work on his stroke a little bit, he could become the next OG Anunoby. Just let this kid work on his shot. Ochai needs to figure out his shot selection, man. And he's done that the past few games, and I appreciate that about him. We have Walker Kessler, who's just a rim protecting menace. Like, they got this, dude. They got Taylor Hendricks, who is an incredible power forward who has great defensive instincts. Bryce Sensabaugh could be a 2 or 3 of the future for this team. He was the most efficient player last year in the NCAA tournament. Like, just let these kids kind of progress and let Lowry lead this team. That's what I have to say about this. I believe that we have the draft capital to continue to draft who we need to, but the team we have now, they may not look scary right now, but neither did OKC like 4 years ago. Do you know what I mean? But now look at OKC. They're knocking on the door. Everyone's paying attention to them because they're commanding respect. I think the Jazz can command respect in a few years. We just have to go through these growing pains, which suck as a fan, but that's just kind of how it is.
So you think we have the pieces already,
I think
and
we
they
have a
just need to
lot of them.
develop?
Yeah, I think we have 3 of the 5.
So who's the
I think
number one
Keontae
option?
George, I think Larry Marketing and Walker Kessler are pieces that once they reach their full potential, they'll absolutely be championship caliber players. I think Bryce Sensabaugh, you could put at the 2, and we would have to see what he can do, and we have to see what Taylor Hendricks can do, honestly.
And how long is that going to take?
In my opinion, man, I think we got at least 3 to 5 years, honestly. It's a long time, man.
Here's the issue, in my
All right.
opinion. I don't think any of these guys have showed potential to be an MVP caliber player. At least not yet. Not Lowry. And Lowry's our number one option right now. I don't think Lowry, and this might be hard for Jazz fans to hear. I'm a Jazz fan, but I don't think I don't know. I don't think any of us really think he is a top 15, even a top 20 player as of right now. So he needs to develop that.
At the
Can he
moment.
develop it? Maybe. You know,
At the
that's what
moment,
everybody stipulates. It's like this guy can
Like,
turn
he's a
into
top
this.
25 player.
Maybe.
No,
Yeah,
he
I think
definitely
he's
is
in
a
the top.
25 player. He's not a top
Probably
20
top
player.
25 to 30.
I agree with you. He's not a top 20 player at the moment. He's in the top 25 though, and he's 26, man.
Maybe.
He could put
So
it
I think
together.
he could be a good piece for sure. He could be the piece. You know, not the piece, but I think he's going to be a number 2 option.
Fair.
I think if you throw him on the Nuggets, for instance, he's going to be a 2 or 3 option. You throw him on the Celtics, second or third option, probably more on the third option type thing. You know, you throw him on the 76ers, you know, he's never the primary option because these guys have MVP caliber level players. And
Yes.
can Lowry transform into that? Perhaps, but I think we're seeing basically an incredible player, you know, a guy who can average anywhere between 24 to 26, 27 a game, which is absolutely amazing for a 7-footer and the things that he does. But what I'm afraid of is that the Jazz are going to turn into a losing culture. You know, what can very easily happen is you continue to lose, and this is why, you know, against the Trailblazers, winning that game is so crucial to be winning games, because if you consistently lose as a team, I think the team begins to kind of tune out stuff. They begin to tap out. They stop caring, you know? We've seen that happen before. We've seen that, you know, people can get in ruts. Teams can get in ruts where they just, you know, they're just going, they're coasting through things. And I think a lot of that is on coaching to try and keep people in check. But I mean, look at these worst teams in the NBA, you know, teams like Detroit Pistons. They've just been consistently losing. They've got Cade Cunningham, who's an incredible player. They've got pivotal pieces. You know, I love Detroit and what they have, but it's just like it just doesn't seem to be working. They continue to dive in to the draft, and the Utah Jazz, they also have a plethora of draft picks. And what ends up happening is you just keep getting these young guys with a ton of potential, and then you have too many, you know? I mean, look at Detroit. They've got Jaden Ivey, who's potentially coming off the bench now. They've got
Yeah, that's insane, by the way.
I know. They've got Cade Cunningham, who's, you know, he's obviously getting a lot of time, but they have a bunch of these top 10 draft picks like Killian Hayes doesn't seem to be panning out too much for them. They've got Asar Thompson, who's starting to demand more minutes. So it's taking minutes from other guys who have potential. And, you know, that's kind of what I feel like was happening to the Rockets as well until they made some big trades, you know? And kudos to them. I thought that they overpaid Van Fleet and Dylan Brooks, but they brought in Ime Udoka, who's probably going to be coach of the year. And then he turned the program around with, you know, some extra pieces, some veterans who were good. And so I'm afraid of that happening to the Jazz. I want to live within the draft and get lucky and get, you know, somebody who can turn into a top 10 player.
Right.
But I don't know how long that's going to take. And with the current state of the Utah Jazz, they've got Keontae George, who I think
Yes.
is somebody who you can build around, who I think has potential to be a 20 to 25 point guy per night.
Yes.
But if
Absolutely.
you are losing, which we're going to lose this year, we are likely to get another top 10 draft pick.
Mhm.
And you know what? Maybe we should think about that, because if we go beyond 10, like if we get the 11th or 12th draft pick, then we're giving that to OKC, and we don't want that, you know? And so you get another top 10 draft pick. What are you going to do with that? You get another really young guy. It's going to postpone being a contender, being very, very good, because this guy needs to develop now. You keep doing that, you keep cycling in these new young guys. It just takes longer and longer. But that's a part of the process. Look at Orlando Magic. They got Paolo Banchero, Franz
Yes.
Wagner. They needed to wait, until they got really pivotal pieces who could be the cornerstone of their franchise. And now look at them. They're one of the top teams. And Doc, I know that we talked a little bit about this before.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody really predicted Orlando to be doing as good as they did. But in one of our previous videos, I thought that they were making the playoffs. You could just tell from last season. They
Yes.
started to bring it, they were losing quite a bit at the very beginning, but they brought it together. You could see it. And I knew they were going to make the playoffs this season.
Yes, you did. And you were right on the money. And I love that. Um, let me go back for 1 second here, because I'm going to defend, as crazy as this sounds, I'm going to defend the Detroit Pistons just a little bit. Monty Williams is a brilliant coach, as we know. I'm not thrilled about taking Ivy out of the starting lineup, or Asar Thompson, honestly. But those are the players I would continue to play consistently with Cade Cunningham. They had the worst November of like any team ever. I think they lost like 15 in a row, which is insane. But the resurgence and the homecoming of Bojan Bogdanovic, even though they lost against the Cavs, JD, like, the saying is, it's nice to have adults in the room, man. I think that's why Houston has been so successful, is because they have Van Fleet, and love him or hate him, Dylan Brooks has been in the league a few years now. It's good to have adults in the room. Bojan Bogdanovic is an adult in the room. I can guarantee they're not going to have a December the way they had a November. That was just god awful. The Jazz aren't going to become that, though. I can promise you that. The way that Will Hardy is switching things up, the way he's trying to adapt, they're just not going to become that team, man. Like, especially because, like, they don't have a player like Lauri Markkanen like we have. Like, Lauri is really something special. We're going to hold on to him. I don't think Cade's better than Lauri, dude. I really don't.
But I think Cade could become better than him. I mean, like, let's take a look at what he's averaging.
I don't think he could, man. I don't.
I
think Lauri's ceiling is a lot higher, personally. Because Lauri, dude, to me, Lauri can be the next Dirk, man. Like, he is that efficient. He's that big man. But that's
he needs to become a better ball handler if he's going to.
Yes, he does. Well, we've talked about that. He has to improve that. He has to improve ISO. But let's segue into our next question, which is going to be fun. Let's talk about some trade scenarios, man. Who do you think is even going to be on the Utah Jazz after the trade deadline? I'll tell you one guy who I really don't think is going to be on there, as much as I love this man, is Jordan Clarkson, dude. I think Jordan Clarkson, I think KO, and I think THT, because the latter two have expiring contracts, are valuable trade pieces. And if I was the Utah Jazz and I was looking to not necessarily catapult myself into contention, because I don't know if there's a player out there that, or a trade out there that's going to let them do that, I think one trade that would really benefit the Utah Jazz and the Trailblazers would be Jordan Clarkson, a 2029 second, a 2030 second for Malcolm Brogdon. Now, hear me out on this, all right? The Trailblazers are way behind in their rebuild. They just started. They know Malcolm Brogdon, even though he's a fantastic presence for Scoot Henderson, they understand that he's not going to be their point guard of the future. And in reality, you're getting a great scoring injection from Jordan Clarkson. And I don't know if winning right now is like the highest priority for the Trailblazers because they bench Scoot Henderson. They clearly want him to develop. I think next to a guy like Clarkson with 2 seconds, especially with how much draft picks are now valued nowadays, would be enough to get that done. They've both been prior sixth man of the year. Personally, I think Clarkson is better than Malcolm Brogdon, especially in terms of scoring volume. And I think that's something he could mentor Scoot with, because like Scoot really doesn't need to like learn how to pass the ball. Like he understands how to do that and he's great at that. Scoot needs to learn how to score, man. Like who better to teach him some tricks of the trade than Jordan Clarkson? Jordan Clarkson, we call him the flamethrower here in Utah. Like the human torch, man, the chameleon, the magician. He has all these names. He knows how to score. Scoot already knows how to pass. You're not really giving him any kind of mentorship that he's probably not already received from Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon's a fantastic point guard. He really is. But you need to show Scoot how to get the ball in the hoop, because that right now is kind of a struggle. I think Jordan Clarkson can show him how to do that. Plus you get 2 seconds. Like that to me seems like a great trade. And then Malcolm Brogdon, a veteran point guard, can go to the Utah Jazz. And, you know, if our listeners disagree with this, please let us know in the comments. But Malcolm Brogdon can help mentor and develop KG3 to become a better point guard. But the reason I think this works is because KG3 can score. Scoot can't. Scoot can pass. KG3 is still developing that skill in his game. You know what I mean?
So the logic...
You see where I'm coming
understanding,
from, right?
The logic here is that the Jazz acquire Brogdon, and Brogdon can help develop, you know, they need a mentor for Keontae George, some veteran guard who, you know, knows the game. And then vice versa, you got the Trailblazers receiving Jordan Clarkson, who is a shooter, and he's going to help mentor Scoot Henderson. You tag on a couple second rounds, and that could help strengthen that deal. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I mean, what's Scoot's major struggle right now? He can't score.
Well, Scoot's struggling with everything. I think that if I'm the Trailblazers, I'm not doing this. I don't think Clarkson's even playing well at all this year. I mean, he's shooting the most for the Utah Jazz right now, around 15 to 20 shots a game. He's shooting around, what is it, like barely 40% field goal percentage as your primary guy who's shooting the ball. And then you have him shooting from 3 around 32, 33%, which is below league average. So he's not only below league average. It's not his best year, but I mean, I don't know why you would want, like, he's a flamethrower. If you want to trade Jordan Clarkson, I think the teams that would really want to get him are the contenders that could put him in a 6-man role where he could, you know, just become a flamethrower off the bench. I don't think that this trade is really going to go through. I think it would be ideal for the Jazz. I would love to pawn off, but also we have a guard problem. I think if you want to look at the Utah Jazz and the trades that they're probably want to look at, you have too many guards and just too many players overall that are demanding too many minutes. I mean, if you take a look at a team like the Nuggets again, for instance, the Nuggets, they only had like an 8 or 9 man rotation. The Jazz are playing like 12 to 13 people per game. You know, it's just too many of the people don't really have their identity.
We lost you for a second.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I covered down for you. You're saying we have too many guards, and you're right.
Yeah, so too many guards, and what I'm getting at is that the real likely people that maybe anybody would want, because it's a two-way deal. You got to say, hey, if we're trading people we don't want, there's got to be a team that wants them, right? So the only people that I could really see teams really wanting would be okay. Maybe somebody's looking for a backup point guard. Sexton has shown he can kind of do that. I don't know if anybody's really going to want THT. He's just going to maybe be an
No
expiring
way,
contract, and
man.
he's not bad. Like I don't think
There's
any of these
so
guys
much
are
hate
really
on
that
that guy.
bad.
There's too much hate on THT, bro. There
Well, I
really
mean, they
is.
struggle. They're out of control. Both Sexton and THT just run it in, and then they get out of control. But you see, this previous game against the Blazers, I thought they both did very well, and I think Sexton was one of the main reasons they won. So that happens every once in a while, just like Clarkson. Every once in a while, Clarkson will, go off and be the reason that the Jazz win. But most of the time, these guys are out of control. And so, but I think, bringing it back, I think that people would likely want, teams rather, would likely want maybe Sexton if we're lucky, if somebody would want him as a backup or six man. Jordan Clarkson on a contender, maybe like the Miami Heat or, somebody who is just wanting a bit more fuel off the bench, or maybe Olynyk. And Olynyk is just like an overall good player. He does good things. He makes good plays. Those are likely the guys that I think will be potentially traded at the deadline or could be traded. And if you do that, if you trade somebody like Olynyk, who I really enjoy Olynyk,
God, I love
but
KO. He's so good.
what can
So
happen
much fun.
is just like you might free up some space for Taylor Hendricks to be coming,
True.
He's been showing that, this previous game with the Trailblazers this past Sunday, that you bring him off the bench, he looked incredible on defense. And he even made some good plays on offense, and that was his first real game, in the NBA. And so I am proud of him. I thought he did incredible. But in terms of trade scenarios, I think if you realize that you are losing and that you're going to be losing, you got to develop these guys,